justify the sales tax being kept who wants to increase the taxes as you have in McCook?
We've done a lot of work at the Institute on tax increment financing districts. The theory of these are, for those who are unfamiliar with them, is that you designate a geographic area, usually because of blight, a TIF, and then the property taxes that come in from that TIF are essentially frozen, and any natural growth that comes in goes into the TIF funding process. And then the TIF funding process is then allocated by a variety of officials. The one I'm most familiar with is Mayor Daley's TIF fund. He has about, last number I heard was about $800 or $900 million sitting in that TIF fund. What would you think about, what do you think about tax increment financing districts, and what would you do to reform the process of creating and managing a TIF and increasing TIF transparency for the public? And let's start with Roger, and then I'll kind of mix it up as we go and call on each of you.
Thank you. I am opposed to the TIF districts. I would like to do everything we can to abolish them. They're nothing other than a slush fund for the mayor. But what I want to explain, what's the option? When I was in Washington, I worked for a kid you might remember named Jack Kemp. And we, Don Totten, and a Democrat Senator named Glenn Dawson and I bipartisanly passed something called enterprise zones. Enterprise zones like a TIF in the sense that it reduces costs and whatever. But the difference is in an enterprise zone, the job producer, the person who's there generating new jobs, revenues, and whatever, keeps the money. So there's a reward for you having been in some tough neighborhoods and helping hire new people. That's what you need, enterprise zones. TIFs are frankly political frauds.
Tom?
Well, 2 years ago I created a website called Abolish TIFs. So I've been on this issue for quite a while. There are 420 TIF districts in the county of Cook. They sucked $875 million of your property taxes away from the units of government that deserve them and need them. And they're talking about your police, your libraries, your city colleges, your community schools. Basically, if you live in a community where there's a TIF, you're being robbed. And your tax bills are not telling you the truth. That's $875 million, $500 million for the city of Chicago alone, where there's 160 TIF districts. I'm the only candidate talking about abolishing these things, and I would use the bully pulpit of this office to go to every community in the county and urge you to tell your elected officials, because it's a city thing, it's a municipal thing, you got to tell your mayor and your alderman to give me my money back and abolish these TIFs once and for all, because they're the huge slush fund ripoff. They keep the machine running. I could spend the rest of the night talking about the projects, the stinking insider projects that these TIFs fund all over the county.
It comes down to accountability and the type of people that you have administering these things. The McCook TIF is one of the most successful brownfield developments in the United States. Reynolds Metals sat there for years, had to crepitate it into bankruptcy, so there were no taxes being paid at the time, the final years that McCook Metals was in existence. I have to compliment the administration that was in the village at the time that had the foresight to put the TIF together. They had to fight to get at least the $600,000 that was the last tax bill paid back onto the rolls. We do meet with the school boards. They are part of the tax increment district. They understand where the money is going and how it's being spent. And we wouldn't have that development there today without it. There is accountability via the taxing board that oversees it. That is not a board that is just controlled by the politicians. It's the presidents, CEOs of the school districts, and various other taxing bodies. So where an eye is kept on them and the money is reinvested back into the TIF, the EVA in McCook will go from $600,000 to about $21 million in a 10-year period. The schools understand that. We may not be building their gymnasiums today, but in Lyons Township and right here in Lyons, Illinois, we'll be building the schools of tomorrow. Thank you.
Tony.
Yes, Mr. Tobolsky loves TIFs. He's got them all over McCook. And who's on the TIF oversight board in McCook? Mr. Tobolsky's relatives. Now that provides some real good oversight. You know, they all get around the kitchen table and decide how to split up your money. And he wants to do the same thing at the county level. Please, give me a break. I have worked with Commissioner Quigley, now Congressman Quigley, to expose the TIF shenanigans of Mayor Daley, which is now over $1 billion, last time I checked, that he has diverted, and he controls himself without the 50 aldermen having anything to say about it, just like Mr. Tobolski controls that TIF money without anybody having to say anything about it. We have mandated through ordinance that David Orr, county clerk, put all of the TIF information online. So if you go to the Cook County clerk's website, you will find all of the information about every TIF in Cook County on there, and it shows you how much is being diverted from your schools, parks, and libraries into these funds that are being controlled by the mayors.
Thank you, Tony. What do you think of the current scandal that is all the rage out of his administration?
When Tom talks about this Carla Oglesby who got arrested, she's one of the brighter members of the Stroger administration. But I want to put in perspective why Illinois is in trouble. If you compare Todd Stroger's performance to our last 3 governors, I'm not so sure I wouldn't take Todd Stroger. You compare Todd Stroger to Michael Madigan, I guarantee you I'd take Todd Stroger. Now, I didn't say Todd Stroger did a good job. That's not what I said. I think what shaped the state of Illinois is Todd Stroger, among major officials, was one of our more competent. If that doesn't scare you, there's something the matter with you.
I want to thank Anthony for bringing that up. 23 times over 4 years he's been right there with Todd Stroger, voting for either fees or tax increases. We've got his picture with him at the Brookfield Zoo, having a nice party on the taxpayers' dollars. The true phony Tony, the white lies, they're right here. So this is part of the Stroger administration that the people in the 16th district are going to bring to an end. Thank you.
Tony?
It takes a lot of gall to put out a piece of literature like my friend Tobolski did here, putting a picture of Todd Stroger and myself and saying that Todd and Stroger's board raised your taxes. I mean, how hypocritical and how much of a liar can you be? I mean, there's really no other word for it. Anybody who knows me for my entire political career knows that's absolutely not true. And sir, I challenge you to produce the record where I voted for one single tax increase. Don't tax that. Produce anything at all. Right now, right here. All of it. You couldn't remember them last time. They're here. Can I not be interrupted while I'm speaking, Mr. Moderator? You're being very polite tonight, so I would appreciate the same courtesy that I give you. I challenge you to produce a shred of information or paper that shows that I voted for any tax increase in my 8 years. I not only did not support Todd or John Stroger, I ran against them. I spent my own money doing it, not shaking down the businesses in McCook like you do to raise your money. I have put my money forward.
Thank you, Tony.
I voted for you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony. Renewable resources such as solar, wind, and geothermal reduce reliance on foreign sources of energy, and some people say create jobs and reduce pollution. Certainly reduces pollution. The question is whether they would create regular jobs or subsidized jobs. But nevertheless, it's an interesting debate, and I think in some cases you can make the case it's win-win-win. Do you support creating these enterprises, and if so, how would you go about funding these projects? Tony, let's start with you and work our way down.
To recycling, to buying green, to having alternative fuel trucks, all of these things the government should participate in because it saves us money short and long term, and it prevents damage to our environment, so I support those.
Thank you. Jeff?
Yeah, 100%. I have 2 developers here today that are working on a gasification process in McCook where we can start to take some of these unsightly garbage dumps down. The garbage is compressed, there is no external combustion released, and the energy from the compression is fed into the electric grid. That might allow us to begin to power several communities or reduce their electric expenses by providing cheaper electricity to our participants. Secondly, the village is under grant right now working with the Chicago Caucus of Mayors to change all of our light bulbs out in the village and make them more efficient, better lit. These are the same policies that obviously should be explored at the county level, and it definitely is a good investment, good return on your investment.
Roger?
The company that I